Today, we are covering the emotional drivers behind sleep apnea. An estimated 1 billion people worldwide suffer from sleep apnea. However, many cases go undiagnosed, meaning the actual number could be even higher. In the US alone, around 30 million people are believed to have sleep apnea, but only about 6 million are diagnosed. Welcome back to the Mind Change Podcast. I'm your host, Heather McKean. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, download, and comment. It really helps us to continue to create all of this great content for you and others, and lets us know if we are meeting the needs of our community. People with severe sleep apnea can experience breathing pauses up to 100 times per hour without realizing it. Now, some people think that sleep apnea is linked to snoring, and we have seen many overlapping emotional drivers. So if you snore, you may want to check out our other episode on snoring. Though loud snoring is a common symptom, sleep apnea also causes choking, gasping, silent pauses in breathing, which could be dangerous. Interestingly, men are at higher risk, but women can also suffer from sleep apnea, though they often have different symptoms, like insomnia or fatigue, rather than the loud snoring. There are also many comorbidities linked to sleep apnea, like obesity, high blood pressure, stroke, diabetes, and even dementia. Now, the emotional toll of sleep apnea is real: fatigue, mood swings, even depression. But here's what you need to know. From a mind change perspective, all of the relevant comorbidities would tell us that the body has a very important message it is trying to get through, but it is not being heard. Overall, we're talking about a breathing problem when we talk about apnea. And breathing is one of the most profound metaphors for life, presence, and connection, both in the physical and metaphysical sense. It represents the flow of energy, the rhythm of existence, and the balance between giving and receiving. In many traditions, breath is seen as the bridge between the physical and the spiritual. Breathing problems can symbolize deep emotional, psychological, or spiritual blockages. Difficulty breathing can reflect unspoken truths, stifled emotions, fear of self-expression. If you were raised in an environment where you had to hold back your feelings, opinions, or needs, you may unconsciously hold your breath as a way of staying safe or small. This would have shaped your relationship with breath from a young age, leading to issues later in life. So let's take a look at some of the possible childhood environments that might contribute to the body speaking up through sleep apnea later in life. As a child, you may have felt, for various reasons, deprived of maternal love or care. Now, this could have come from the death of a parent, divorce, or having a mother that was carrying too much of her own unresolved pain, and she couldn't be there for you like you needed. You may have grown up feeling suppressed and overwhelmed in a family that expected too much from you. Your relationship with your mother may have been inconsistent. Maybe sometimes she was warm and other times she was distant or even angry or mean. That would have left you with a lingering sense of emptiness. Love and attention may have felt unpredictable, leaving you uncertain of your worth and then always seeking or searching for validation on the outside that never makes you feel fully complete. You may feel intensely sensitive and fearful, yearning for love and reassurance of a mother figure or just someone close to you. If you grew up in a highly controlled or emotionally distant family, whether in a household with strict social and moral expectations, or a home where affection was conditional, or an environment shaped by criticism and high demands, that would have taken a toll on a very young, growing, developing system. Now, this can also happen when you grow up in a family environment that was either like a strict religious family. So you would have had strong moral codes around behavior, relationships, and obedience. or possibly just a very strongly patriarchal family, where maybe there were rigid rules and roles around gender or authority structures and the kinds of expectations and duty. You may have had an authoritarian family. So authoritarian families are high control, where there's little to no room for emotional expression or personal choice. Another possible contributor would be a highly status conscious family. This would have been emphasis on reputation, image, following social norms. It's possible that your parents were in some sort of a role where they were looked at and studied closely or in the public eye in some way. And that would have been transferred also to the children. Another family that would contribute is one of those emotionally repressive family environments. That would have been where there would be an avoidance of open discussions about emotions, struggles, or the way you were feeling about personal identity. So these kinds of environments and more can contribute and create to family taboos, strong social restrictions, moral inhibitions, and unspoken but strictly enforced rules that shape a child's identity and belief system. For instance, these rules might sound something like showing anger, sadness, or vulnerability is unacceptable. We don't talk about problems outside the family. Crying or expressing frustration would be seen as weakness or disrespect. Maybe it would be, it's not okay for a boy to show sensitivity or for a girl to be strong and assertive. It could also be the way that people dress or behaving or pursuing careers outside of the family's rigid expectations. It could have looked like you should never question parents, elders, or religious leaders, or a belief that children should be seen and not heard, or even that speaking up or setting personal boundaries is disobedience or betrayal. Could also be feeling like success only comes from following like a certain predetermined path. So children raised in these environments often internalize these restrictions, making it hard to trust their own feelings, assert their own needs, or break free from ingrained fears of disappointing others. This naturally impacts the way a child would learn to breathe. Let's now take a look at how this might show up in adulthood and what sleep apnea might be trying to say. So one of the messages is that you tend to feel overworked and underappreciated. That leads you to carry a lot of disappointment, bitterness, and resentment. Expressing those emotions or even admitting them to yourself feels unsafe, kind of like as if doing so could lead to rejection or abandonment of those closest to you. Instead, you push those feelings down, but they don't disappear. They just build up and build up and build up and then put a tighter squeeze on you, which of course affects the breathing. You might find yourself avoiding joy or downplaying happiness and deflecting love, driven by a deep-seated belief that self-sacrifice will finally make you good enough, or that you can earn the approval that you've always sought. In the process of doing that, trying to earn everybody else's validation or approval or sacrificing yourself all the time, what you're really doing is you're suppressing yourself so much that it feels like you're suffocating under the weight of your own and others' expectations. And so this leads you to feeling trapped in fatalism or repressing anger or compulsively overgiving. People who compulsively overgive are usually hyper aware of other people's needs and yet deeply unaware of their own. And that can be very lonely, even in the midst of a lot of people. You may have a deep sense of limitation and hesitation, and that may make it hard for you to give, share, or express your true feelings. At the same time, there may be a fear of taking in new experiences, embracing change, or even allowing yourself to fully live and enjoy life. The idea of laughter, joy, happiness, that might feel so distant that it feels like it's impossible or almost unreachable for you. You may have a tendency to pull back from life retreating from the space that is rightfully yours. So that would be maybe stepping into bigger roles within your career, or finding places within your hobbies or your creative side, or even sometimes holding back in intimate ways within relationships. Because without a strong sense of purpose or deep aspirations, it can feel as though you're merely existing rather than truly living. And that's metaphorically represented by holding your breath, detached from the world around you. This feeling might be accompanied by a subtle yet persistent unease, kind of like something unseen is lurking just beyond your awareness, kind of like a vague sense of danger that you can't quite name. Deep down, you may long for absolute safety and warmth, and you might connect that back, of looking for that connection from maybe even clear back to the womb. Like you long for a place where everything was familiar, everything was protected, everything was safe and secure. If as a child, expressing your needs was met with hostility or rejection, this may have led you to feel guilty or shameful around even having emotional needs at all. So now as an adult, you may find yourself cut off from love and support, or you may feel that way anyway, relying only on yourself because it feels safer than risking disappointment. Another driver is you tend to overanalyze your mistakes, holding yourself to an impossible standard of perfection, which only adds more pressure. Emotionally, it can feel like you're drowning, unable to fully process what you're feeling. Your mind may have been conditioned to believe that it's only safe to explore your deeper emotions in moments of solitude or complete aloneness, like your sleep. So these repressed emotions keep breaking through in the middle of the night, leaving you gasping for air while you're trying to rest. By waking up frequently, your mind is avoiding diving too deeply into the painful emotions or painful memories or unmet needs that you're too afraid to deal with in your conscious waking moments. Another driver is that you've learned to deny your true feelings as a way to protect yourself and maintain a sense of stability. Over time, the suppression has become so second nature that you may not even be fully aware of the intensity of your emotions. In many ways, pushing them down has served you well. I mean, you're already exhausted, so facing those emotions feels like it would only drain you further. Right now, just getting through the day takes enough energy, and the thought of unpacking everything beneath the surface feels overwhelming. Another driver is that you often become so focused on pleasing others and trying to fit in that your own needs and goals get pushed aside. In constantly prioritizing others, you may unintentionally sabotage your own growth, always putting yourself last. Giving your time and support to others comes naturally, but when it comes to receiving help, it can feel uncomfortable, even challenging to accept the same care in return. Another driver is that you feel the need to keep your guard up, always protecting yourself from potential hurt. Even with many friends around you, there's still a lingering sense of loneliness that doesn't quite seem to fade. So, sarcasm becomes armor, a way to deflect and shield yourself, while anger and resentment also serve as strong barriers, pushing others away before they get too close. Deep down, you may long for connection, but trusting others enough to let them in feels like a risk you are not sure that you would like to take. Remember, the body wouldn't be doing something, no matter how bothersome or inconvenient, if it wasn't serving you in some way. So some of the secondary gains for sleep apnea are that it could serve as an unconscious defense mechanism, a way for the body and mind to create a sense of safety through restriction, avoidance, and control. While it may seem like a purely physical condition, sleep apnea could symbolically protect someone from confronting emotions, memories, or fears that they feel are too overwhelming. Sleep apnea repeatedly interrupts the breath, mirroring an unconscious fear of fully engaging with life. If breathing represents taking in new experiences, emotions, or love, then restricting breath could be a way of avoiding vulnerability, change, or deep connection with others. This is sometimes apparent when loud snoring or the use of a CPAP create the need for a spouse to sleep in another room. Unconsciously, this is a way to stay safe and avoid deeper intimacy. Not necessarily sexual, although that can be there too, more emotional intimacy. In that way, the sleep apnea serves you by keeping people at a safe distance when you are at your most vulnerable, asleep. If life has felt unpredictable, chaotic, or overwhelming, sleep apnea could provide a subconscious sense of control, kind of a way to regulate how much air, rest, and restoration is allowed. In some cases, the body may be mirroring an ingrained belief. I must stay exhausted to prove my worth. Or, I don't deserve deep rest or ease. By preventing full, nourishing sleep, sleep apnea could be reinforcing patterns of self-denial, overwork, or martyrdom. Some good questions here might be, where in my life am I resisting deep rest, trust, or surrender? What emotions feel unsafe for me to process? What would happen if I allowed myself to fully breathe, receive, and rest? All right, that's it for today. Thanks for joining us again on the Mind Change Podcast. I look forward to seeing you every other week as we continue to dive into these emotional drivers. Please make sure to leave those 5-star reviews and comment if there's a disease, symptom, or ailment you would like to hear covered. As a reminder, you can sign up for the podcast newsletter and get 10% off private one-to-one sessions with one of our qualified practitioners. Until next time, thanks for joining us on the Mind Change Podcast, where we are changing the world, one mind at a time.